This is Polly Balint with Cherokee Talk, and I'd like to introduce you to my guest today, Michael Anderson. He's with Christian Authors Guild in Woodstock. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Polly.
Great to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are, according to your Facebook description, a writer, editor, speaker, and you're a contributing writer of books and magazines and product reviews. You're the co-founder and past president of Christian Authors Guild, and that's a lot.
Wow. I did all that? It's amazing.
But tell us, what is Christian Authors Guild?
Well, the Christian Authors Guild is a writers group, and it was started back in the year 2000, so it's a little over 16 years old now. And it was started by Cheryl Norwood and myself, and she had gone to a conference up in Blue Ridge, and came back and wanted to start a writers group, and she talked me into it, to helping her with it. And it started, and we met at the bookstore that I had at that particular time, and we had maybe a dozen people show up for the first meeting. And from then on, it just grew and grew and grew, and we were doing things by the seat of our pants there, and we thought we would want to educate and encourage people to write. And we finally got a little bit more substance and everything. We got some other people in that had been experienced writers, some of them published. And it really has grown a lot since then. A couple of years after we started, we got involved and decided that we would do a conference here. And here we just finished up last week, the 14th annual Atlanta Christian Writers Conference. We've had it located at several locations, and the last 2 years it's been at the Radisson Hotel in Marietta. Mm-hmm. And it's just a sensational conference. We bring in some top-notch speakers, people that are experts in their specific fields and everything, and it's been really great. And the writers group has continued to grow. We were adding up maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and we figure at least 350 members have come through the group in those 16 years. It's kind of like an incubator for writers. I don't know that any particular member stays for more than 3 or 4 or 5 years. Sometimes they physically move to another area, or sometimes they just move on to other things. And we try to have things for everyone, all sorts of genres. We have what I affectionately say, cats from every alley. We might be, 1 week we may be talking about poetry, the next week writing screenplays, the next week building your platform, how to market your book, and the next week we're talking about little tricks to using Microsoft Word or social media and things like that.
So you meet every week?
We meet twice monthly, on the first Monday and the third Monday of each month.
And where do you meet?
We meet in Woodstock. One of the members, longtime members now, has graciously opened up their church to us, and it's been a really nice blessing for us to be able to meet in the fellowship hall there, which has got everything. Even the big screen TV, we've got sound system and lots of tables and writing and food. And that's kind of nice. There's a kitchen there, and we have great refreshments. A lot of people, because the meetings start at 7 and they work all over greater metro Atlanta, they drive there right after work, and for some, our refreshments are dinner for them too. Mm-hmm. But it's a prayer and praise Christian fellowship. It's about a 30-year-old church that's out on Bells Ferry Road, 6409 Bells Ferry Road, kind of at the junction of Bells Ferry and Eagle Drive, all the way through the Town Lake area, and kind of right on the borderline of Ackworth and Woodstock. Mm-hmm. That's where we meet.
So this is a great place for people, especially, I've heard a lot of people say, I wish I could write a book. I don't know what to do, and I don't know who to talk to, and maybe I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, that would be a very good example, Polly, of the types of people that we get in. I know that Every time we have a meeting, when we open it up, we check for visitors. We usually have 5 or 6 visitors at every meeting. And the president or the vice president, who's ever in charge of the meeting, will ask, what are you writing? Or what are you doing? Why are you here? And of course, some people say, well, I wrote a book and I don't know how to market it. Someone else will say, I haven't written anything, but I would like to someday, and I'm just getting started. And that's probably the majority of people right there.
So do you have, when you have your meetings twice a month, do you have a different speaker? You said they're different subjects. Is it?
Yeah. We usually have either a class, and that class can be using maybe a new type of software that's just come out. Scrivener, I think, was one of them that a lot of writers now use. And we may have a whole class on just that. Or we may have a class on the artistry of words, and instead of using an adverb and a verb, finding a single verb that describes what a writer might need to capture that moment. We might have something else on the difference between active and passive sentences, and which is preferred, and how to recognize either. And then maybe the following meeting, then we'll have a guest speaker. We try to bring in a guest speaker that is already a published author, and not that they come in to try to sell their books, but rather to sort of let their hair down and share with our members their writing journey. What were the pitfalls that they ran into? We can learn from the mistakes of others, and we can also learn what did work for them. And so they usually do. They just come in and they just are glad to be amongst other aspiring writers, and they just share their hearts and everything, and we learn a lot from those speakers as well.
Well, you have a network of Christians, which is always it's always a good thing, because you're brothers and sisters in the same mission, the same purposes, the same intentions of being the light. And when you have a gift, you want to hone it.
Exactly, and hone's a good word to use on that too, Polly. Our motto, if you will, is casting a Christian wave on a secular sea. Sometimes the word Christian in conjunction with a writer's group makes maybe the outsider think that, well, everything you write is going to be devotional or something in some sort of a denominational magazine. That's not the case hardly at all. Sure, there are some people that write devotionals, and sure, there are some people that contribute to different denominational magazines, but the vast majority of our writers are writing all kinds of different things. Anywhere from romance novels, and they're writing mysteries, children's books, and we've even got people that are writing what I would call Christian fantasy. Now, with that in mind, they're also keeping in mind that they are Christians, and what they read or what they write is going to be read by other Christians, and so they usually will temper the situations, the language, and things like that too. But they are trying to be out there with their secular brothers and sisters, and trying to honor God with their words and their writing and their talent.
There's a responsibility as a Christian when we're writing things.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, we can't just write anything and honor God.
That's right.
And since He's given us the gift to write, what we write needs to be Christ-honoring.
Exactly right, Polly.
But it's not just books. The Christian Authors Guild isn't just about writing books, like you mentioned, magazines. It's writing.
Yeah. In my own case,
columns, newspaper columns.
Yeah, in newspaper columns. We can tend to be looking at the single goal is to get a book published, but we try to make sure we don't get caught in that trap, that there's so many other things you could write. And of course, now there's things like podcasts. There's writing for online magazines as well as paper magazines, blogs. We just had a 2-part class that was very well attended, and it was just how to do a blog. And we had people coming, a lot of visitors to that one too, because there's no charge for our meetings or anything. And it was just incredible. And it was taught by a 78-year-old lady. And she's got an incredible blog out there. And so these are all ingredients of what would be a writer's platform now. We had a class on using Facebook Alive, which is another derivative of just the standard social media, and how a writer can be on there and really get their message out that way too.
There's lots of, it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
So anybody who's listening now, they say, well, I'm afraid to write a book, but I wish I could just find a magazine to write for. So you can help them, the CAG, C-A-G, can help them with that.
Yes, how we do. And we can give them, there's different handouts that we'll go ahead and we'll direct them to say something, for example, like the Christian Market's Guide, which there's a book right out there that we'll go ahead and half the book, the first half of the book are all the different Christian book publishers. The second half are all the different magazines that are out there too, and what their writing requirements are and whether they take contributing a freelance writer articles or not, and so on, all the different guidelines. But I thought I was going to write the next great American novel, and I went to a conference, and I think I got into the wrong classroom by mistake, and I was too embarrassed to get up and walk out, knowing that I was in one about writing for magazines. I never thought about it and everything, but the more I listened, the more I thought that really was more for me. And so now, that was 14 years ago, and I haven't written a book yet, but we've written a lot of magazine articles in a lot of different areas. I just love it now. So
different subject matters, or
all kinds of different subject matters. And in fact, I just got done teaching a class on building editor relationships with different magazines and everything, and what they're looking for, and comparing the freelance writers to horses in a stable. And it's like, I want to be her favorite horse in the stable. And little things like making sure when they assign you an article and it's supposed to be 1,000 words, that you don't go back and say, but I can't get it in 1,000 words. I can do it in 1,200 words, but not 1,000. It's like, no, the editor doesn't have time to do that. And when they give you a deadline, I try to have it in 2 days before the deadline, but definitely make it by deadline, because anytime you don't deliver, they open the corral gate and tell that horse to move on down the road.
And they close the gate.
And they close the gate. That's right. The chances of getting another assignment are pretty slim. Likewise, if they do have another writer that for some reason fell short and could not come through on their deadline, and finally let the editor know just a few days before the deadline that I can't deliver, if you've got a good reputation with that editor, she may call you and say, Mike, I need this article, and I need it in 5 days. It's 750 words. I already have the photographs that I need for it. Can you do it? And I almost always say yes. Mm-hmm. And many times I had one that was, it was the American Girl's Place in Chicago. I know nothing about American Girl dolls, and it was like, but I wanted to please the editor, and I knew that if I was able to do it, that I would be one of her favorite horses in that stable, and I may get a nice article that I really am interested in later on.
So we've got to pay the price.
Yes.
To get what we want.
But there's people that, again, writing song lyrics and screenplays, and one of the nice things that we stress in the Christian Authors Guild, but maybe has not been our strong point, was critiquing. And it's essential. You have to have critiquing. And but the method of doing it and the model to do it, we just didn't know what we were doing there. And critiquing is something that your feelings can be hurt. It's like, watching American Idol and having a judge tell you that, only your mother could love that voice. How did you get this far? And so we have just recently built an alliance with an international group called Word Weavers. Word Weavers has a number of chapters all over the United States, and their specialty is critiquing. And they have a model and a method that works, and it works in a Christian type manner, and it gets across the actual critiquing part, and yet does it in a nice way too, that the person doesn't feel as though somebody is just tearing their writing to pieces. It's constructive criticism, and we're about ready to launch our first meeting with Word Weavers. We have a chapter now in Woodstock as part of the Christian Authors Guild, and it'll be launching on Monday, August 29th, a week from today. And we encourage anyone that's interested in coming and hearing more about Word Weavers. You can go online and actually join Word Weavers and go to any chapter you want. But it'd be nice if you wanted to go ahead and, when you join, tell them that you're interested in see if I can say this 3 times fast. Word Weavers Woodstock. Word Weavers Woodstock. Word Weavers Woodstock.
So if they're not able to make it when you're having the opening, because does CAG meet year round?
Yes.
So at any time.
Yeah, they can come in at any time. Yep. And it's not unusual for CAG members to have dual membership in yet another writers group. There is another secular writers group in Woodstock, and it's called Woodstock Writers. And we have some of our CAG members are also members in that secular group. And then we also have, there's a chapter in the greater Atlanta area of American Christian Fiction Writers, ACFW. A lot of our members are members of that. The Georgia Writers Association, which is a big group, they meet over at, I think, Kennesaw University, and a lot of our members are members of that. It's not unusual to be a dual membership, or some of our members are members of 3 different writers groups and go to all the meetings. And they glean education from all of those sources then.
Well, you said that you write for magazines. You've been doing that for a long time?
Yeah, I really have. And at first, I started doing product reviews, book reviews, movie reviews, things like that. And I guess the same editor kind of worked there. And then I started writing articles, and I started writing more articles. And then I discovered there were these things called trade magazines that had a controlled circulation that were targeted to owners, managers, purchasing people in specific different industries. And then I learned that there's you can resell magazine articles, and you can take an old article and dust it off and clean it up and put it out there again. One of the popular authors in the Christian marketplace that maybe some of your listeners are familiar with, Dr. James Dobson, has written all kinds of books. Well, they've gone back now and they've redone some of his books, and they haven't touched the content necessarily, but sometimes there's a phrase, if you don't like the commercials, get up off your chair and go and turn the channel on the TV. Well, I don't think anyone does that anymore. They don't get up and go turn the channel.
They do the mute button.
So now, so there's just sometimes just difference in the terminology. But other times, I did one for a Christian magazine, and it was called Your Other Ministry, and it was basically the relationship between employer and employees, and how people are looking at you as the boss. And if you call yourself a Christian, you're a walking testimony every day. Well, that was published, and it was a feature story. And then a couple years later, I took it out, dusted it off, cleaned it up a little bit, interviewed some different people in the secular world, bosses, and I came back, and it was the same article. Basically, was called Your Other Mission, and that took off in a completely different industry then too. And so we show writers how that can work too. And then we try to, even little things, even if it's a secular magazine and we're interviewing someone, it's not uncommon for me to sometimes make sure, especially if I find a store owner or if I'm doing a trade article that is a Christian, and I go ahead and I try to inject something to show that the Christian reader can identify with this person.
Mm-hmm.
So
but you can use your articles for the non-Christian magazines as light.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Polly.
Well, this is Christian Authors Guild is a great place for people. Well, first of all, people need to know about it because even high school seniors, even college students, it's a great place for them to connect with seasoned writers who are constantly wanting to learn also, isn't it?
It is, and we have a couple of, I think they're right in, one was a junior in high school, and she comes pretty regular, and then we have one that's maybe just out of high school, and maybe one that's in the 20s. We have them all different. I mean, we've got, and it's almost equally divided between men and women. For the longest time, it seemed like it was mostly women, but now enough men have come that they feel comfortable in coming too. So we've got almost a 50-50 now as far as genders go, and that makes for a really lively meeting sometimes too. So
I've been to them, and they do get lively because you have a lot of creative people in the same room.
Oh yes.
Well, you said that you sold a store that you had in Canton.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, we had moved into Cherokee County back in 1986, and we opened up a Christian bookstore. There wasn't one in Canton, and Canton was sort of this sleepy little town at that time. And we had been mentored by some other larger Christian bookstores in and around the greater Atlanta area. At that time, they were mostly all independent stores. There were very little as far as chain stores go in the Christian retailing. And that store grew, and we grew with it. And before you know it, this other little town in Cherokee County, Woodstock, they went ahead and they were in need of a Christian bookstore. We opened up one down there. And that store grew, and we, for even for a while, we had one just as a convenience to the community in Powder Springs. So we were operating these Christian bookstores, and they were growing and growing and growing, and they got to be a real handful. And we really enjoyed that time. We enjoyed the people and everything, but we also started seeing the trends in the future, and a lot of that was going towards more online shopping, things like that. And there was a chain store called Family Christian Stores, and they had just heard that we won the store of the region, which was a 5-state area, and we were pleased to be honored by the Christian Booksellers Association as one of the top stores in the Southeast, and we really appreciated that. And we were never on anyone's radar, and any chain store's radar up until then. And then we got calls from every chain store, and Family Christian Stores had just purchased the largest Christian bookstore in Georgia, and it was called the Christian Armory. And the owner there basically told me, Mike, this is what the future's going to be, and he said, you really need to go ahead and consider this. And we did. We sold the stores to Family Christian Stores, which went on for another 10 years in the community, and in Canton they're still active, and it allowed us time to get involved with some other things then, like the Christian Authors Guild.
Well, we used to go to New Song Christian Bookstore, and we loved it, and it was all of the stores were just beautiful stores. We loved shopping there.
Well, thank you.
So, how can how can people get a hold of CAG or you or?
Well, they can go to the website, of course, the ChristianAuthorsGuild.org, and they can look under the different tabs, whatever they're interested in, and basically they can email info@ChristianAuthorsGuild.org, or they can always email me at andersonwriter@gmail.com.
Could you say that again?
andersonwriter, and it all runs together, andersonwriter@gmail.com. And we'd be happy to answer any questions then for them. And kind of go from there. They can also check out, we've got a Facebook page under Christian Authors Guild, and you also a Facebook page under the Atlanta Christian Writers Conference, which we sponsor as well.
That's great. Michael, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show, and I appreciate you coming and talking and sharing, and I think that you people need to find out more about Christian Authors Guild. It's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. This is Polly Balint at Cherokee Talk.